Today I've got a Volkswagen Touran and it has an engine light on with a P0102, massive volume airflow, circuit low, and that's what we're going to do. So we've got a choice of be a parts changer and change it, or test it and see why it's actually faulty and see what we get. Now using Heller HGS data, I'm going to see. Here's the mass airflow sensor, right? See a mass sensor, air mass sensor, sorry. So, got the wires in, we're going to get signals and a ground. So this one here, pin 2, comes along there and goes into a fuse box, so that'll be battery power, and goes into fuse 14, right? Also shares that fuse with positive crankcase ventilation system heater. Probably other things too. We've got a ground. It's not showing which one's which on here, but I would guess one of these would be, it's got to be an internal ground in the engine ECU. One of these is going to be the temperature sensor for the air temperature in the intake. Not the intake, the intake air temperature, and the other one would be a signal. One of these would be a signal. So I could check that just by going across the wires with a power probe, seeing which one's which, but at least I know pin 2 should have battery power with the ignition on. Here's the mass airflow sensor, and I've already tested it with my power probe. Don't know why I didn't show you it actually, but there's no 12 volts. It's supposed to have battery voltage with the ignition on, and it's not getting it. So I already know to go and look at the fuse box and see why has this got no power. If the fuse is okay, then it's probably a break in the wire somewhere between here and the fuse box. But I'm going to check the fuse, and if the fuse is blown, we need to figure out what caused that fuse to blow. Here's a picture of the fuse box, and the fuse that we need is 14. That's the one that keeps blowing. And if I look down the list here, I've got crankcase ventilation heating resistor, air mass sensor. Now that's the one that's blown and there's no power to the wire of the mass airflow, and there's not going to be any power there because this fuse has blown. So we need to see what's caused this fuse to blow. Now it could even be a faulty mass airflow sensor if it's shorted inside, so when you change the sensor, you fix the problem. So in that case, just getting a code read and changing a part would have fixed it, but you wouldn't understand maybe what had happened. So in this case, it's always best. So I'm going to start by unplugging them. I'll go for the first thing, the crankcase ventilation heating resistor. Now, if you unplug something and it doesn't fix it, it's not that you're wrong in your diagnosis. It just means it's not that. We're working through. We could go through in order. Some of these things are the fuel pump. Now that is working. So I don't know if this is totally right, but I'll start with that, the mass airflow sensor, and see what else we come up with. There's some more stuff coming off the same fuse 14. I'm using the Heller HGS wiring, so we've got the same fuse 14 fuse box inside the cabin, and that comes down through this wire here to pin 1 into the diagnostic plug, so the OBD2 plug, or EOBD. So that's where that's going, diagnostic plug. So there's a few things to check as well, so I'm going to have to try and work through in order and get some kind of plan. What I'm going to do is disconnect different things. This one, I know if that's something been plugged into it that could short it out. I'll have a look, see what I find. The other ones, what I would do is just unplug whatever it goes into, unplug it, and I'm going to connect a bulb across the fuse so I don't keep blowing fuses. I'll connect a bulb across and just keep unplugging something until the light goes out, and then I know I've got the fault. I've replaced the fuse with a bulb, and it's not lit, but if I put the ignition on, It's still not lit. If that lit up, it would have meant there was a short circuit on that circuit, and it's not doing it just now. But here's the thing, if I turn the steering a little bit like that, just there, and go past it, go back, go past it, it's just that one little area. Right there. Right there. And I straighten the steering up. We've got a short circuit, so there's got to be a wire or something. And just raised the steering column with this adjuster. Raised it up because I could see wires down there. There's one there. And there. I've just raised it enough. So those wires must be rubbing on the steering column. And now with the engine running, so I can turn this easier, that bulb doesn't come on all the way around, you see? Let's just lower it back down. See, does that do it again? I might have moved the wire just enough. No, it's doing it again though, you see? When we raise this, it goes out. Raise that and it goes out. So it's one of these aftermarket wires. I'll take the trim out of the way and look at the wires. I haven't checked it fully, but I think I'm in the right area now. If we look where this OBD connector is, and those wires run along here, not these aftermarket ones that I was thinking, but you see there, they've been rubbing on that shaft. You can see the rusty ring mark right there on the steering column. That's it, and when I lifted it up, it just cleared it. You see right there? I can't put my finger in to show you, but right there. So I'm going to have to inspect those wires and cable tie that wire out the way. It was those wires there. Right, got this wire pulled down, and there it is, one away. Right there. I'm going to have to check the wires, tape them up, and cable tie this out the way. If they broke right through, I'd repair it, but I think that one's just rubbed. So I can cover it in tape them all up separately, and then wrap it all up and cable tie this out the way. That's all it is. It's just moved out of place and been rubbing on here. Blowing this bulb when you turn the steering, I actually thought it was going to be the breather because I had it before. So anyway, it doesn't show you on the scan tool when you get a fault code that it'll be the wire chafing on the steering column. You see, this is, I'll show you the difference between what you see on a scan tool and this. So I'm basically here mainly because of the mass airflow and it going into limp home mode. So when that fuse blows, right there, when that blows, it's got no power. So I'm here, mass airflow, but a code read would just be that's it. You put a mass airflow sensor on, but a diag is you see what's actually happening. You go to the mass airflow, it's not got power. Why is it not got power? Because the fuse is blown, and what else is on the circuit, and you try and find the cause of the blown fuse, which is there. So there's a view of it now, cable tied out the way after it being fixed. The wire's taped up, and it's cable tied totally out the way of it, so it's not going to do it again. Now I got the steering column right down back to where it was, and when I turn this, I'll try and get them both in the shot. See the bulb that's down there? It's not lighting up in any position because we're not touching it. And it was pin 1 on the OBD connector. So now I've got to connect everything else that I disconnected earlier, but that looks like it's going to be okay when we put a bulb in there. When I put a fuse in there, I mean, and remove the bulb. If there was a short circuit, that would light up.